بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر الخالق البارئ المصور الغفار القهار الوهاب الرزاق الفتاح العليم القابض الباسط الخافض الرافع المعز المذل السميع البصير.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
قل يا أهل الكتاب تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم ألا نعبد إلا الله ولا نشرك به شيئا ولا يتخذ بعضنا بعضا أربابا من دون الله فإن تولوا فقولوا اشهدوا بأننا مسلمون.
Greetings, I'm Bilal Dannoun and you're watching Voice of Islam. You can also watch us online on www.voiceofislamtv.com.
And so I leave you with the last of these many treasures of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is what they call in Arabic shibhu jumla. Innaha laysat jumla. It's not a sentence. It's actually what's called in English grammar a fragment. Okay, it's a piece of a sentence. For example, if I say in the car is not a sentence. If I say there's a person in the car, now that's a sentence. In the car there are a lot of people. That's a sentence. But if you just say in the car, it's not a sentence. When you just say in Allah's name, that's not a sentence. That's an incomplete thought. There's no mubtada, there's no khabar, there's actually a muta'alliq, it's just a jar majroor. The Arabic students will know. There's no fi'l. Some grammarians, when the mufassirun studied this ayah, they said, wow, this is incomplete. How do you complete it? There must be a fill in the blank. So they say it must mean abda'u bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim or abtadi'u bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I begin with the name of Allah. You might have seen some English translations that say I begin with the name of Allah, even though the words I begin are not there. They're just not there. So the question is, why aren't they there? And that's what I hope to share with you now. Allah Azza wa Jal in His wisdom, the one who allaman al-bayan, right? He taught us how to speak. He knows how to speak. When He wants to make a full sentence, He will make a full sentence. When He wants to give you half a sentence, He will give you half a sentence. We don't judge Allah's speech by our standards. Our speech is judged by Allah's standards. He's the one who taught us how to speak. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gave us an incomplete statement on purpose, because what you do next completes it. In the name of Allah, I eat. In the name of Allah, I get out of bed. In the name of Allah, I wash my face. In the name of Allah, I get in my car. Everything you do is actually completing Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It is as though this beautiful gift of Allah was waiting to complete everything you do. It's the other way too. Now you know what you understand? There's lazim and malzoom. If you do anything without Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, it's incomplete. This was a part of it. This is a part of the equation. It had to be. In small things and big things.
Welcome back. Children spend a majority of their time under the care of teachers and amongst peers. Teachers and schools are focused on providing an education to kids. But what about instilling morals and values, especially Islamic morals and values, so that kids know the importance of being good to their neighbors and praying 5 times a day? Is there an Islamic approach that we can implement? Omar Zia, instructor at Understanding Islamic Academy and curricular head at Thomas L. Kennedy Secondary School in Mississauga, will share his thoughts. Welcome back to our show, Omar.
Thank you.
So when it comes to schools, we have several stakeholders. Can you comment a little bit about what perspectives they bring to the table?
Absolutely. So there are several stakeholders in working at the education system. First and foremost is the school board itself. The school board itself takes a holistic approach when it comes to education, meaning that they have an inclusive agenda. Everybody within the education system has to be included. That means all cultures, all faith groups, and all identities as well. So that refers to the LGBT community as well. The perspective of the school board is that because they want everybody to be included, they had to set up a system where social justice is providing an equal and equitable place for learning and working for both staff and students alike. Another stakeholder are the teachers themselves. Teachers also have a stake in education, and they want to see their students succeed to the highest level. Teachers are concerned about the curriculum, but they are also concerned about the social and emotional welfare of their children as well. But every teacher, like every human being, comes with their own set of beliefs, their own culture, their own faith background as well. They may or may not choose to bring that faith into the classroom. Generally speaking, religion does not necessarily have a direct place in the classroom, although it might be indirectly mentioned depending on the context of the curriculum.
So how do parents deal with that? Because schools and teachers generally, you're rightly so mentioning that they don't have a focus in terms of teaching Islamic, not even Islamic, but general moral beliefs and values. Their focus is really giving the child an education. And looking at the social context that we're in nowadays with discrimination and Islamophobia is on the rise, how do parents balance that perspective?
Parents have to balance that perspective by educating in the home as well. And this is where a lot of parents don't realize that they actually are the next stakeholder in line. You've got the school board, you've got the teachers, then you've got the parents, and then the child themselves. The child takes an active role in education for themselves in school and outside of school, and parents also need to be aware of their role as a stakeholder in their own child's education. It's not enough for parents to say, well, they'll just learn it at school. Somehow school will just magically take care of all the problems of the world.
And raise them to be the best children.
Of course. No, parents need to take an active role in teaching kids manners, morals, ethics, etiquettes, how to conduct themselves in day-to-day interactions, how to have integrity themselves and uphold themselves with dignity, how to develop self-esteem. Those are all within the purview of the parent themselves, and it begins in the family home.
So how does the parent do that? Is there something from an Islamic context? Is there sort of a methodology or an approach?
Absolutely. So according to the prophetic tradition, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, actually mentioned 3 stages of life. That for the first 7 years of a child's life, the role of the parent is to nurture and love and care for that child. And by doing so, teaching them empathy and loving and developing a nature that gives. I call it a heart of charity. As for the next 7 years, as age 7 to age 13, the role of the parent is actually to teach the child. And in teaching the child, they're teaching them interpersonal skills, which is how to interact with everybody around them, intrapersonal skills, how to know more about themselves, teaching them how to develop their own identity, what it means to be a Muslim, no matter what context or what culture they're in, and then teaching them the basic Islamic and Canadian values, which generally speaking go hand in hand. The next 7 years, age 14 to age 21, the Prophet, peace be upon him, taught parents to befriend your child. It's an amazing time in life when we reach that teenage years, because that's when they're basically like mini adults, and it's easier for a parent to communicate with them and to reach out to them and understand where they're coming from. Because although we go through several psychological milestones, the teenage years are most similar to the adult mindset as well.
And you're talking about sort of the teenage, so we're talking 15, 16 onwards, right, to the adulthood.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest reasons that I talk about the teenage years in that context is because up until the age of 13, a child is an inductive reasoner. You can tell them what to believe and they'll believe it. By the time a child turns 14, let's say for example you say to a child when they're 11, 12 years old, you say smoking is wrong. And they say, yes, smoking is wrong. You say drinking alcohol is wrong. They say yes, drinking alcohol is wrong. Then also when they turn 14 or 15, you say to them smoking is wrong. What are they going to say?
Why?
Exactly.
I want to try it.
Because now they're a deductive reasoner. They have to deduce for themselves the principles of belief. They have to understand why we live life the way we do. And now they're able to problem solve. And that's where the role of the parent becomes more of a coach, more of a friend, rather than a direct instructor. And that's one of the biggest differences between the earlier stage of teaching and the next stage of being a friend. But one thing I want to make sure is that teaching doesn't stop at the age of 13. We still teach them into their teenage years. And love is not just for the first 7 years. That love and nurturing continues from age 0 all the way to their adulthood as well. And love, again, is an essential component of all 3 stages and beyond.
So this sounds very nice in theory, but practically speaking, what would you say to someone who says, well, it's great, I'd love to be, my teenager's friend, and I know I was a brat when I was a teenager, and I'm sure if my mom came to me then I'd be like, no, I don't want to be your friend. Hopefully she's not watching this. But how do you address that when we're living in a time where, profanity, kids are learning swear words as young as grade 2, for instance, disrespect amongst parents. I'm trying to understand, how do you practically play this out?
Okay, thank you. It's a great question, and In my experience as a guidance counselor, I have actually worked with a number of parents, and I've had parents who are not friends with their children at all. They're still very directive with their child, almost like a dictator in the household, which it doesn't lead to a very conducive household of communication or openness. And it's very difficult to be a proactive parent in that case. I've also met parents who are so friendly with their kids, you cannot tell the difference between them.
So there's no balance of discipline.
Right, and the lines of parenting are completely blurred. And in some situations I've seen the parents and the kids dressing the same, talking the same, and there's no way to discipline or teach a child at that point. And then I've seen the more balanced approach, where you always have a line. You are a parent first, and but you're also a friend at the same time. And becoming a friend with your teenager, it's a lifelong process. So when they turn 14 or 15, you don't all of a sudden let all the guards down and become their best friend or start talking to them and hanging out with them. That's not how it works. It's a gradual release of responsibility as they continue to grow and exercise that muscle of deductive reasoning. What we have to understand is that a parent lectures, whereas a friend discusses. A parent has limits and rigid rules, whereas a friend will negotiate some general basic rules that happen. A parent might be worried, whereas a friend expresses concern.
So it's about, as a parent, it's about finding the balance between these, rigid rules and then also where there's room for negotiation.
Absolutely. And allowing for you want, as a parent, to let your child develop normally. And you don't want to put too many restrictions on them.
What do you mean? Sorry, I just want to step in. What do you mean by develop normally?
Normal is a relative term, all right? And what I mean by normal is that within the context of our society, we don't want children growing up to be extreme in either of any viewpoint for that matter. We don't want them to be completely assimilated within society as well. We want them to have some sense of independence, but some sense of dependence as well. Independent as a being, but dependent upon the greater collective as a community. We want our children to grow up as part of a community and to make a difference in the world, but to do so in a way that's conducive to the betterment of humanity in general. Right? The Islamic perspective is always about human beings, humanity first. Right? So it's always about improving ourselves to help humanity become better as a collective whole across the whole globe.
So Omar, we've talked a lot about the prophetic approach. Are there any mainstream methodologies that you can refer to?
Absolutely. So the 7+7+7 formula that I mentioned from the prophetic tradition, you'll also find that in the research of Jean Piaget, who's a very well-known child psychologist who was around all the way up till 1980, I believe is when he passed away. And he has exactly the same formula. He has a sensory, and also the pre-operational mode, which is basically the first 7 years. Then you have the concrete years, which is also the next 7 years, and then you have the formative years, which is the next 7 years after that. So he follows the same type of idea as well. You may also find that we're talking about the social context, but if parents are interested in learning more about specific ways on how to support their child during that middle 7 years of teaching them, they might want to refer to the work of Howard Gardner on the theory of multiple intelligences. There's also the Montessori philosophy as well. So Dr. Maria Montessori, you've heard of Montessori schools, her basic philosophy is follow the child. And the idea behind following the child is to allow the child to explore and develop on their own. Earlier I mentioned developing normally. You asked what does normally mean. It really is about the child figuring out what they want to do in life and for the parental stakeholder to provide an environment that supports that growth. To not set up specific rigid limitations that you must follow this occupation or you must learn this way or you must act this certain way. We want children to grow on their own and to learn on their own so they can develop the self-confidence, the self-esteem that they can succeed in whatever it is that they want to succeed in. And their parental point of view then becomes helping them to succeed with excellence, and to pursue with excellence. So whatever they do so with the best potential that they can do so that they can reach their potential. And the parents are there to support them in that respect.
This has been a very holistic discussion on parenting. So thanks a lot, Omar.
Thank you.
People may think that he used to wear a particular outfit or uniform, but on the contrary, he wore everything men wore at his time as long as it was modest. He wore the Yemeni jubba, he wore the turban, he wore the khumra, which is the ghutra or the cloth put on the head. He wore the qulunsuwa, which is the hat. He wore Roman outfits and Coptic outfits. He wore trousers. He only avoided anything grand or lavish and anything that could make worship hard for him. In fact, he once cut off the sleeves of a garment because they were too tight to be rolled up for wudu, or the ablution which is performed before the prayers. That was Prophet Muhammad.
Allah, Allah, Allah.
Assalamu alaikum everybody, a quick message from the team at Voice of Islam. Every time our show airs, we reach a potential audience in the hundreds of thousands. We bring the truth about Islam to non-Muslims and help Muslims learn more about their own faith. Every time something positive comes from Voice of Islam being on air, those people who have contributed and made the broadcast possible share in the potential rewards, inshallah. We really appreciate people donating what they can. Every little bit helps us meet the cost of broadcasting each week. We sincerely thank everyone who has helped us and continues to do so, and we look forward to more help in the future, inshallah. If you are keen to contribute, please visit our website for details of how to do so.
Today I would like to speak to you about a word that was repeated 32 times in the Qur'an, in 19 different chapters, surahs. When we put this program together, we were thinking about what's the theme or the message that the Qur'an focus on. And one of the things that we found the Qur'an again and again talking about is children, dhurriya, the word dhurriya. This repetition, just many times the Quran speaks about the word or mentions the word dhurriya. As I said, 32 times in the Quran. This points to the significance of the word dhurriya, which it means offsprings or children. You know, family is the cornerstone of the society. And for that reason, Islam placed much emphasis in the importance of family. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many verses in the Quran told us about the importance of looking after our family, raising a strong family. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا. O who you believe, protect yourself and your family from the hellfire. وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاصْطَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. Order your family to pray on time and be patient with that. يُوصِيكُمُ اللَّهُ فِي أَوْلَادِكُمْ. Many times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us that He remind us of the rights of our children. And He clearly stated what some of the rights are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praise Ibadur Rahman, the one who say, رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. They pray for themselves and for their families, for their children, for their spouses, that they will be a قُرَّةَ عَيْن, cool to the eyes. Often when we think about children, we often think about how can we raise them? How can we protect them? How can we teach them? How can we provide for them? That's what usually people talk about when they talk about children and family. And I believe that's natural. As the Prophet ﷺ said, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Each of you is a shepherd, and each of you will be held accountable for his flock. The Prophet ﷺ, yes, he recognized that, and the Sharia recognized that natural thing, that we look after our children, we, as I said, provide, protect, and that's the role that we play in their life. Teach your children and family good manners and etiquettes. في مصنف عبد الرزاق النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم said, علموا أولادكم الخير وأدبوهم. And I can go on and on in many ahadith and many verses talking about children from that perspective. But today, or tonight, I would like to look at our children and look at children from another lens, from the lens of learner. How about if we tonight, before we go home, we a little bit focus on what can we learn from our children. There is this young boy was holding 2 apples in his hand. The father said, hey, why don't you share one of them with me? The son quickly took a bite from each apple. So the father said, you know what? Why? You should learn how to share. That's not nice. You know, you should not, you're not going to be able to eat all of them, both of them. Why don't you share one of them with your dad? You know, you should be generous. You should be this and that. And he started like teaching him a kind of lesson about generosity. But the boy with a very soft voice, he said, Dad, actually, that was not my intention. My intention was to find out which one of the two apples is sweeter to give it to you. The dad said, at that point, I realized there is much I can learn from my child. There is so much I can learn from my own kids. A lot of time we forgot that this, many times Allah talk about children is to make us pay attention to everything related to them. And today I would like to share with you some points, observations that I have about children. Since Allah, alhamdulillah, blessed me with a good number of children and I've been watching them growing over the years, okay, I can share with you some of my experience. Number one, persevering. Children do not give up easily. They are goal-oriented. Obstacles are ignored and they focus on their target and what they want to achieve. You know, tell your kids no to this, he will find another way to talk about it. He will keep insisting to go and to achieve what he or she wants. Don't you agree? You know, it's so interesting how they are so focused on their goals. And when they want something, they try every possible way to achieve that goal. You know, I wish us as adults, we pick that attitude from our kids. I wish us as adults, we're not willing to give up easily our dreams, our goals, just because of the challenges and the obstacles that face us when we try to achieve our goals. When you have a goal in your life, you have a meaning for your life. You guys, can you think of a basketball game where there is no goals to score? There is no ring. We just pass the ball to each other. How boring game this is. Can you imagine football game with no goals? Can you imagine soccer with no goals, hockey with no goals? Very boring game. That's exactly how your life is, a very boring life. You're all willing to give up anything easily. But when you have a goal in mind and you're driven by your goals, you're driven by dreams, your life will be completely different. I do believe one of the secrets behind the success of every successful movement, it is because they have clear goals. So many times, not us as individuals, but us as a family, as a community, we don't have even clear goal that we are committed to it. Ask many of us as a community leader today, unfortunately, say, what's your goal in your masjid? What's your goal in your community? You as a Dallas community, what is your big goal that you try to achieve? And what we're trying to achieve as a community in North Texas, for example, you will see most of the time we don't have a very clear vision of what we want. Most of the time we are not driven by our goals. Most of the time we are driven by our problems. You know, big difference between Martin Luther King when he used to say, I have what? I have a dream. Can you imagine if Martin Luther King used to say, I have a problem? Driven by his problems, he wouldn't go anywhere. Can you imagine the example Dr. Ahmed gave you? If he every day woke up and he say, I have a kidney problem, and instead of saying, I have a goal to achieve, I have a change to make, I have a point to make to myself and to the people around me. That's a big difference between us as a community who often driven by our problems and we don't focus on our goal and willing to drop them quickly. Number two, a positive attitude toward mistakes. Children, before they go to school and they taught in school, being wrong, it means bad. They figure in their own, being wrong, it doesn't mean bad. Being wrong, it means an opportunity to learn. Being wrong, it means an experience. Being wrong, it means something I can discover, something I can change. It's an opportunity for me to grow. Very positive attitude towards mistakes in life. But often us as an adult, our mistakes are the reason for our failing. You know, success is not ever, it doesn't mean ever that you don't make a mistake. It doesn't mean that you've never been knocked down. Actually, success, it means you can stand up every time you're knocked down. Every time you make a mistake, you come back and you correct yourself. You know, our Muslim theologian talk about, you know, العبد قبل الذنب أو بعد التوبة أيهم أعلى. You are better before you commit a sin, or you're better before you make a tawbah, repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they give the example of Adam. They said Adam, after his sin and repentance, he was higher than Adam before committing any sins. He reached higher level. He became a prophet even afterwards. So when you repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's something elevates you. Our religion teaches us to have a positive attitude toward our mistakes, and to look at them an opportunity for us to learn and to grow. Number 3, I love about kids, they have an absolutely beautiful, pure heart. Children do not have grudges, forgive easily in most of the time, okay? They are transparent about their feelings. Adults should learn from children this quality. They should know how to they should learn to deal with one another with the same level of sincerity. If you were extend an act of kindness toward a child, okay, what will happen? You will see the attitude of this child completely change tremendously. He would easily forget about whatever wrong you done to him. You know, sometimes maybe I will do something to my kids and I will say, hey, Omar, let's make a peace, or my son or my daughter, hey, let's change that, and I'm sorry, and I take him out for, a good ice cream or something like that. I'll give him a gift. He will change and he will be happy, and things are forgotten, and we move on in our relationship. But many adults, no matter what you do, if you buy them the whole chain of Baskin Robbins, okay, if you give them whatever, they will never forgive you. So many of people, adults, you do a lot of good to them in your life, and one time you make a mistake, one time you do something wrong, one time is not your day, maybe it was not that, you did wrong to them, and it will never be forgotten. Spouses, they hold grudges toward each other. Oh, you remember, there is people, when you have your screen and you minimize the screen, okay, it's always there. One click, bring it up again. Some people like that. When they deal with you, they never close that windows. It's always there. It's always ready to pop up in the screen again. There is people like that. The moment you see him or you meet her, what's happened? Immediately your file pops up and the history. Yes, that's happening that day and that's happening, and always in the back of their heads. That's very bad. That's very wrong. We need to learn how to forgive. We need to move on in our life. I was telling a brother yesterday, talking to me about the concept of forgiveness, and he was telling me how some of his friends or some of his family members have wronged him badly. They did something so bad to him. And he said, Sheikh Waleed, they did this. This is evil. This is meant to hurt me, to hurt my family. It really did. It almost broke my family. And I said, hey, when you forgive someone, do you forgive someone who have harmed you and caused wrong to you, or you forgive someone who did good to you? He said, you know what? I got it. You're right, Sheikh. Often we forget that forgiveness, it means to forgive those who have wronged you. That's what forgiveness is. أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ? Don't you want Allah to forgive you? So learn how to forgive. Learn how to be willing to forgive others. Whenever you forgive people, you don't set those people free. You set your heart free. Every time you forgive someone who have wronged you, you set yourself free. You don't chain yourself to that person that you hate anymore. You just forgive him and you let it go. Number 4, ability to adjust. Children adjust quickly to the new environment, quickly to the new school, much faster than adults. They quickly adjust to the new home, to the new stage in life that they are in. This is a big challenge to so many adults today. They don't know how to adjust to the new life that they have. A lot of people cannot adjust that, my kid is not anymore elementary school kid. My kid is a high school kid. My kid is in the middle school. My kid's now in college. You know, my kids is now married. She has her own house. She has her own life. A lot of parents cannot adjust to that. They don't know how to deal with that new change in their life. A lot of adults cannot adjust that, you know what, maybe the career that I have and I get laid off, I can't work anymore with this degree. I can't work anymore with this kind of experience. I need to adjust to the new situation that I'm in. I need to learn new tricks. I'm not too old to learn. You know, I need to go back to school and to learn. You know what, my community is different. I can't live in the past. Things change. A lot of time we cannot adapt to the change that happened to us and we became paralyzed. I wish that we can learn from our children the ability to adjust. One of the most beautiful meanings Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah talked about when he was talking about the concept of as-sabr, being patient. He said, as-sabr, one of the meaning of as-sabr is your ability to adjust to the new situation that you're in. As-sabr is not just passive thing, doing nothing. It's your ability to adjust with the new situation that you're living in. Number 5, that's my favorite part about kids. You know what it is? What is it? It's they smile a lot. Kids, they laugh, they smile. You know, a study shows that average kids smile 200 times a day, while an average adult smile 14 to 17 times a day. And I bet you anything, this percentage is way lower in the Muslim community. You know, one of the common factor I found between Muslims beside La ilaha illallah, okay, that they don't smile often. Believe me, I travel the world. I travel all over the United States of America. I go to many masajid. The common look in the average Muslim face in the masjid is checking you out. It's very rare to find someone who smiles. Just genuinely smile at you, come across to you, and he give you this beautiful smile even if he doesn't know you. As if we didn't hear what the Prophet ﷺ said, تَبَسُّمُكَ فِي وَجْهِ أَخِيكَ صَدَقَةً. Your smile, it's an act of charity. As if we never heard Jabir radiallahu anhu and Aisha radiallahu anha and many companions saying, I never met the Prophet ﷺ unless I found him smiling. As if we never come across a hadith like that. As if we never come across statements like this. It's strange how many of us, unfortunately, became a borderline grumpy people. I think it's about time to change that. We have a St. Luke hospital in Houston. And this is the first hospital in our nation, actually maybe worldwide, but in our nation, who start treating people with laughter. They start an experiment, as basically an observation that they use laughter as a form of medicine. A study shows that when you laugh a lot and you smile a lot, actually you live longer. One common factor between all those who live long life, that they laugh a lot. This brother, he said his grandma was in the hospital and he said, hi, she's like about almost 80 years old. He said, Grandma, how are you doing? She said, I'm fine. You know, they draw some bloods, and so far they roll out pregnancy, you know, so waiting for the rest of their, she's joking. That the Spirit made her live that long life. I have in my community a brother, mashallah, he's African-American brother, beautiful brother, who works in Montana in the winter in one of the resorts, skiing resorts, and in the summer comes to Houston. I said, that's the wrong time to come to Houston. Anyway, mashallah, he's so active, he's so strong, look fresh. He would never say, his daughter, she's a professor in the university, in Clear Lake University. And I always tell him, mashallah, how come you so, you know, shining like that? Very fresh and strong, always walking. He said, Sheikh, you don't know? Black don't crack, you know? He said, you know. And I said, that's what it is. That's basically that spirit that kept him strong. What I'm saying here, that studies showing that our body produce naturally a natural killer cells called NK. These are cells that are responsible for attacking all viruses and all bad cells that turn and potentially can be a cancer cells in your body, you produce that on a daily level. But alhamdulillah, you have in your system that NK cells responsible for attacking them and killing them and not make them effective. Guess what? Study shows that when you laugh a lot, these NK cells not only increased in numbers, but also became more active. You know, a lot of studies just try to Google healing through laughter. And as I said, this hospital have a leading, basically research in this area. So hospital humor is not a joke. It's a true. It's a free medicine that Allah have given us. Use it. I will prescribe it for you, and I don't need to be a medical doctor to do so. I'll say, smile at least, 3 times a day, before meal and after meal. If you ever pass one of your friends, pass by anyone who don't have a smile on his face, give him one of yours. It's one of the most contagious things, one of the most beautiful things to have. If you ever think that you lost your smile, because I can't see all the faces, but I see some people maybe looking at me in a strange look, but I'll tell you, if you think you lost your smile, it didn't go anywhere. It's under your nose. Just smile and be happy. Go home today happy. Number 6, discovery. Children are naturally curious. They're continuously making discovery in their life. They try to figure out the world around them. Adult, unfortunately, somewhere, somehow, at certain point in our life, we lost that curiosity, sense of curiosity. We stopped discovering ourselves. We stopped learning about new things that you don't know about. At one point you think you know enough. No. وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. Above each knowledgeable person, there is so much knowledge to be obtained. As Imam bin Rajab said, al-ilm, knowledge, is 3 stages. When you enter the first one, you became arrogant. You enter the second one, you became humble. You enter the third one, you realize that you're ignorant. The more knowledge you have, the more you feel how ignorant you are. That there is so much out there you didn't know before. That's why, take it from me, if you find any student of knowledge who's arrogant, you immediately know that this person is still in the first stage of knowledge. The more you see the person's down to earth, the more knowledgeable the person is. We stop discover the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in us. You have so much talents, you have so much things in you can utilize. You can benefit the ummah from. When I was in high school, my teacher took me to a place and he said, Waleed, I want to take you to a place where ideas worth millions of dollars, where ideas can change our city, can bring a lot of change to the world. I was wondering, where is he going to take me? University? The Chamber of Commerce? Where are you going to take me? He took me to the cemetery. And that's true story, happened to me. He said, you see this cemetery? There is people buried there, have idea can change the city, can change maybe the world. Idea worth millions and millions of dollars. It's reals at that time because I live in Saudi Arabia. And he said, the only problem that it's buried with them. They never really discovered. They didn't make it happen. He said, Waleed, make sure when you go to your grave, your ideas and whatever talents that Allah giving to you, it will not be buried with you. Your talents are gifts from Allah to you. What you do with them is your gift back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 7, trust. Children are noticeably trusting of others. People who choose to trust tend to be happier. People who choose to trust others, they live more a stable life. People who have good faith in others usually live a life that's much, much better than those who always doubt others. Trusting people is not a weakness. It's a good character trait. Trusting people, it is always payback, in my opinion. I'm not saying don't let people fool you, but you know what? I would rather to be mistaken in error in an area of being trusted someone and maybe he's not trustworthy. But you know what? But I live happy. I know many people told me, Sheikh, I lend people money, they never give it back. But I never regret it. Because you know what? Alhamdulillah, I learned from my, but I still trust people. Those who always think of people in a negative way, they don't live happy life. Our community need to learn how to trust one another. We need to trust the unknown names. You know, so many times we only trust big names. But if I hear a speaker who's not famous, I don't have trust for that person. You know, I don't trust the youth to give them responsibilities. I don't trust maybe members of my community to give them the responsibility and to let them lead. We need to learn how to trust one another. And we need to work on that in order for our community to grow and our society to be better. Also, one character trait is very good in kids, confidence. My son thinks that he is the best football player in the world. My daughter thinks she is the most beautiful girl in the world. You know, my other girl, she thinks her hair is the best hair ever exists in the world. And everybody, all kids think of themselves that way. They are the smartest, the fastest, the strongest, the most beautiful. This confidence in themselves is such a great quality. I wish us as an adult, we have confidence in ourselves. We have confidence in our iman, confidence in our deen, confidence in our talents, confidence in our knowledge, confidence in our society, confidence in our community. I wish that this sense of confidence, sense of high self-esteem exists in our life. Believe me, much different picture you will see in your life and the life of the people around you. Number 9, kids are, mashallah, very active. You know, are always on the go. I wish that us as adults, we became a little bit active like kids. We became so lazy as we grow old. You know, this guy was the doctor and he said to the doctor to him, hey, you have to be careful. He said, what, doctor? He said, your blood test shows you're a diabetic. He said, oh, doctor, you know, diabetes runs in the family. He said, son, I'm worried that nobody runs in the family. That's why they are diabetic. You know, that's what the reality is. So what we need to be more active a little bit. Sisters and brothers, young and old. We need to be more active. You know, just one hadith. Keep it in mind tonight. بايعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم على ألا أسأل الناس شيئا. I gave my bay'ah to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and I made a promise to him. I will not ask people anything. The narrator said, I will be on my camel and I will drop my stick on the ground. So I'll stop my camel, goes down, get off the camel, pick the stick and go back and ride my camel again. I will not ask the one who were next to me or walking to pick it up for me. I will not ask my servant. I will not ask my slave at that time. Can you imagine? 10 years I served Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Anas ibn Malik said. He never asked me a single day to do something for him. Can you survive 10 minutes, 10 hours without asking your mom, without asking your wife, without asking your kids? You know, I'm guilty as it can be when it comes to my kids. You know, sometimes I feel sad for kids. You know what they say today? One of my kids said that day, he said, Baba, you know what? I think parenting is the only form of legal slavery still exists. You know, we like slaves. We have to work for parents. But anyway, it is an interesting concept. Being active, you do your work. Kana Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he fixed his own shoes, he fixed his own clothes, he do his own things. He fixes his own bed, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. My point is, let's be an active community. I love about my masjid when they start a cycling club, like a bicycle club. So every Sunday that they go, basically riding a bicycle for 5 to 10 miles. And it became something, a habit and growing. People running, people participating in activity, in physical activity. I want to see this more in our life as a community. And the last point I would like to end with, knowledge. It's for the first time, in my opinion, in the history of humanity, where you might find kids know more than parents. I don't think ever in the history children had more knowledge than the parents. But I believe in our modern days, our kids knows in many areas way more than the parents. You know, I can tell you that they are very, very different than the way my generation grew up. You know, every time I used to go back to my mom and dad. Now my kids don't come back to me, they go to Google. You know, they have the technology. You know, I learn a lot of my kids. I always, when I drive them around, I ask them, hey, even my kids who are in third grade, you know, sometimes he will tell me things I didn't know about it. That day he was telling me, Dad, do you know which animal is the only animal in the world can see fronts and back in the same way? I said, I don't know that. What is it? He said, you know, hammerhead shark. Wow, that's cool. You know, wallahi, I'm telling you the truth. Just try to invest. Try when you see kids in the, if you're not parents yet, even kids in the masjid. And instead of screaming at the kids, try to listen to the kids. And let them share with you some of the things that they learn in school. Share with you some of the things that they learn in their schools and their life. You will be surprised how much they know. So learning and knowledge is another thing that I wish as adults we grow with it. I want to end my talk and I'll say that we should appreciate these character traits in our children. We should make it grow. You know what? Don't neglect your children. Don't neglect these qualities in them so it will die early in them. Nurture it. You know, invest in your children. Invest in your family. Let's invest more in our young generations. Why our masajid are not friendly to our children? Why our masajid don't invest time and effort and thoughts, well programs made and prepared for children to nurture them in every aspect? Let's make this a priority for us. Because if we have a strong generation growing, we will have a strong future, a legacy that it will be left behind us. Because life is not about what we gain. It's about what we leave behind us. It's about what we give. It's about what we make. It's not about the money. It's about the family that I leave. That's more important than whatever materialistic things you leave behind you. My brothers and sisters, I would say in the end, this is a message for the kids. Don't ever think of your parents, don't ever think of adults as enemy. Don't ever underestimate the sincerity of their advice. Please, there is this notion that a lot of young teenager boys and girls, they have this attitude that, you know, kind of separate them from the adults and feel them. Maybe they are different. Maybe they think in a different way. But I will tell you something. I'll tell you, never find in the world someone who loves you, someone who cares for you, so sincere to you like your parents. Invest also in your relationship with your parents. You know, I lost my both parents in about 1.5 years apart. And this is a gate for me to paradise. And that's your gate to paradise. And it's the middle gate of paradise. No matter how tall you are, you always look up to your parents. No matter how tall you are, you always look up to your parents. There is this kid was sitting in a chair and the father behind him, you know, holding his son's shoulder. MashaAllah, he became strong and growing old. And the father said to this child, who do you think is the best man in the city? He said, me. The father kind of surprised by the answer. He said, you? He said, absolutely, Dad. The best man in this city is me. The father didn't feel right. The answer was not maybe the thing that he expected. He walked away and he said, Dad? He said, yes. He said, do you want to know who is the best man now in the city? He said, who? He said, you. Then he said, how come? He said, I was the best man in this city when you were standing behind me and having my shoulder. That would have made me the best man in the world. But when you are in front of me, you are the best man. You know, I want you to look up to your parents and to have that respect and love for them. They have great rights upon you to make dua for them, to learn from them. Because one day, you're going to be separated from each other.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you want to attain prosperity and happiness in your life? Then stay tuned with Voice of Islam TV.
There are a few narrations in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ where we hear 70,000 angels. So 70,000 angels, for example, escorting Surah Al-An'am as it came to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, he also told us that on the Day of Judgment, hellfire will be brought with 70,000 straps, and on each strap there would be 70,000 angels. Now think about that. That's 4.9 billion angels in and of itself just carrying hellfire on the Day of Judgment and restraining it as it's brought before mankind, and it brings all of us to our knees. So subhanAllah, obviously you take from that, and if you haven't already gotten that from everything else we've spoken about, just the huge number of angels that there are, and how many of them there are. But what's so particular about 70,000 angels? And is there any way to bring 70,000 angels into our lives? Now, there are many ahadith that talk about visiting the sick and visiting, a brother for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or a sister for the sake of Allah when they're feeling ill, and making dua for them or wishing them well. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that when a person is on his way to visit his brother or his sister for the sake of Allah, when they're sick, an angel stops them and says, "Tibta wa taba mamshak wa tabawwa'ta min al-jannati manzila." So they wish you goodness. They say that you've been purified, and they wish you goodness in your life, and they wish you an abode in paradise as a result of that action. SubhanAllah, that's just for visiting your brother or your sister for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You get that dua as well, and we've mentioned many actions that get that dua. However, there's something very particular about visiting a sick person. I remember when I was teaching Story of Jibreel in Malaysia, and I was with brother Waqar. We were together in the car, and we were on our way the next day to visit Sister Nirmala. I posted about her sister who's been struck by cancer. We ask Allah to give her shifa and to purify her and to expiate her sins as a result of the trial that she's going through. And subhanAllah, as we were on our way there, I said to him, I said, can you imagine that inshallah ta'ala there are 70,000 angels that are escorting us right now to visit our sister? Can you imagine that? And where did I get that number from? The Prophet ﷺ. He said that whenever a person goes to visit his brother or sister who is sick, number one, he said ﷺ, that they're walking in makhrafat al-Jannah, which is the harvest, the fresh harvest of paradise. They're in the best part of Jannah. And they're covered in mercy. And the Prophet ﷺ said that 70,000 angels escort them. SubhanAllah, 70,000 angels go with you to visit your brother or sister, and they even return with you. So they're surrounding your car, subhanAllah, as you're going there. And they go with you as you go into the elevator in ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed. And they enter the room with you, and they will even escort you back home. And the Prophet ﷺ said that if that visit was in the morning, those 70,000 angels would stay sending blessings upon you until the evening. And if it's in the evening, they would stay with you the entire evening, sending blessings upon you until the morning. Now subhanAllah, that's a phenomenal reward. But the question is, how do we get 70,000? Why the number 70,000? And it can be explained through a couple of ahadith. Number one, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that on the Day of Judgment, Allah would say to the son of Adam, "Ya ibn Adam, maridtu." O son of Adam, I was sick, falam ta'udni. I was sick and you didn't visit me. Think about that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying to you on the Day of Judgment, I was sick and you didn't visit me. Now obviously a person would be shocked and they would say, كيف أعودك يا رب? How am I supposed to visit you, O my Lord? وأنت رب العالمين. And you are the Lord of all the worlds. How is that even possible? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would respond and say, didn't you know that so-and-so was sick? وَلَوْ عُدْتُهُ. Had you visited him, لَوَجَدْتَنِي عِنْدَهُ. You would have found me with him. Think about that. You would have found me with him. Now the hadith continues to mention a person who was hungry. O son of Adam, I was hungry and you didn't feed me. How could I feed you, O Allah, and you're the Lord of the worlds? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would say that had you fed so-and-so, لَوَجَدْتَ ذَلِكَ عِنْدِي. You would have found the reward for that with me. And Allah mentions the thirsty person and says, you would have found the reward for that with me. The only person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned actually being with is the one who is sick. So it gives us some clarity on the number 70,000 because the Prophet ﷺ said that every single day 70,000 angels go to Al-Baytul Ma'mur, the equivalent of the Kaaba for the angels, what is known as the frequently visited home, Al-Baytul Ma'mur, and they never return again. So subhanAllah, some of the scholars, they took from that when we go to visit our brother and sister, since the hadith establishes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with them, that it is as if we're visiting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so 70,000 would escort us. There's also a hadith that's weak, but the scholars draw lessons from it, that the Prophet ﷺ, just alluding to the virtue of the person who's sick, the closeness they are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he said, إِذَا دَخَلْتَ عَلَى مَرِيضٍ, if you enter upon one who is sick, then ask them to make dua for you. Ask them to pray for you, because their dua at that time, كَدُعَاءِ الْمَلَائِكَةِ, is like the supplication of the angels. So ask them to pray for you as well. And even if that hadith in particular is weak, there are numerous narrations that establish the closeness of the one who is sick to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't forget that sunnah. It's a neglected sunnah, and bring it back into your life and surround yourself with those 70,000 angels.
Allah